Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami. Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami. Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami. Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami. Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami. Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami. Sangham Sharanam Gacchami.
Dunpa Jumden de Dije Java Da Jumba Yang Dava Zobe Sanje Rigpa Dan Shabso Denpa Devara Sheva Jikden Jemba Jebu Ndebe Galo Njurwa Lana Meba Lada Menamje Dunpa Sanje Jumden de Pe Java Shaja Tuva La Chanze Lo Chodo Japso Che Ho Dunpa Jumden de Dije Java Da Jumba Yandaba Zobe Sanje Rigpa Dan Shabsu Denpa Devara Sheba Jikden Jemba Jebu Ndebe Galo Njurwa Lana Meba Lada Menamje Dumba Sanje Jumden de Penjawa Shaja Tuba La Chanze Lo Chodo Japso Che Ho Dumba Jumden de Dishen Shewa Jajumba Yandaba Zobe Sanje Rigpa Dan Shabsu Denpa Devara Sheba Chikden Chemba Jebu Ndube Kalu Gyurwa Lana Meba Lada Menamje Dumba Sanje Jumden de Penjawa Shaja Tuba La Chanze Lo Chodo Japso Che Ho Sanje Chodan Soje Chonama La Chanju Pado Tane Japso Che Dagi Chushe Jebe Sonama Je Dola Penje Sanje Drobara Sho Sanje Chodan Soje Chonama La Janju Bado Dane Japso Che Dagi Chushe Jebe Sonama Je Dola Penje Sanje Drobara Sho Sanje Chodan Soje Chonama La Chanju Pado Tane Japso Che Dagi Chushe Jebe Sonama Je Dola Penje Sanje Drobara Sho Good morning. I hope everyone is well and are able to hear or see clearly. I am doing this live streaming from a new venue. It looks like my internet is working fine. So anyway, today's plan. First we will cover a few more stanzas from the 37 practices of Bodhisattvas. And then towards the end, we will do a recitation of the King of Prayers and maybe a mala, one round of mala of Om Mani Padme Hum. This is for late Robert Clark. I think the older students or members know him, and he had been a long time supporter of Kachurling, and he passed away. Unfortunately, he passed away, I think now 3 weeks ago. So he was Rinpoche's student, and he had translated for Rinpoche as well as Kachurling's first resident teacher, Geshe Adenla. So we are going to dedicate the recitation of the King of the Prayers for his good rebirth to meet Dharma again, and also to meet qualified Dharma teachers, and to receive lots of teachings, and then mainly to be able to practice and eventually attain enlightenment. So that we will do towards the end. So you may need to get your text. I will recite in Tibetan and you can recite in English. We will conclude by reciting Om Mani Padme Hum, one round of mala. So that's today's plan. So let's dive straight into the practices. So last week we began on the practices of transforming adversities in our lives into the path. So as I mentioned before, this is very important for us, especially for us ordinary people who are caught up in this samsara, because being a samsaric being, we will experience sufferings one way or another. So if we are unable to adopt an attitude that can minimize the negative impact, then on top of not being able to transform that into a path, we will suffer a lot. However, if we are able to adopt an attitude, a specific attitude, then not only we will be able to cope or bear the challenges we face, we will be also able to transform that into part of our practices and path. So there are double benefits. So this from here it begins about when we engage in the Bodhisattva paths, we are bound to experience or meet all kinds of challenges. So here are some of the examples of such challenges are specifically stated, and then suggest how we should look at it, how we should take it, how we should transform that into the path. So as you see in the image, there is a lemon. We have a saying, isn't it? When life gives you lemon, make lemonade. And there are funny quotes. It says when life gives you lemons, it says that squeeze it and add a bit of vodka and soda. So this is exactly the practices are, to give some specific flavor so that we don't taste the bitterness. Instead, we would enjoy. So last week we talked about transforming loss into the path. So today we are going to talk about transforming the suffering into the path. So here it says, Thala nyeba chungse me shindu kanda thaki go cho chenang Nyingji wangi teyi tekba nam Thala lemba kese laglanyins. So, in our life, not everything seems fair, as we discussed last week. In some cases, we feel what is called the indignation. We feel that we are unfairly treated. And sometimes actually we didn't do any, it is not really our fault. We had nothing to do with an incident, but then we end up reaping the consequences. So this is the data about data on those who are wrongly convicted. So it says in 1989, the first DNA exoneration took place. And 375 DNA exonerees to date. I mentioned earlier, one time a guy appeared on the, I think it's America Got Talent or Britain Got Talent, and that guy, he spent in jail for 30 years for a crime that he did not commit. But thanks to DNA evidence, he was exonerated. So in such situation, it is understandable to feel so much resentment, anger, hatred, and then this vengeful thoughts will arise. That is understandable. But when we are pursuing the Bodhisattva path, we have to take a different approach. So that is what this verse is about. Even if someone tries to cut off your head when you haven't done the slightest thing wrong, out of compassion, take all his misdeeds upon yourself. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. So ordinary people, when we are in that kind of situation, our response is to get angry and then response likewise in an angry way to retaliate. But here it says that one of the practices of Bodhisattva is to do the opposite. Instead of getting angry, we should feel compassion for the person. The reason is that by doing this, the other person is committing a negative action which he or she would end up experiencing so much pain and suffering later. Later, that kind of action may bring the person to the lower realms, and imagine how much that suffering would be. So because Bodhisattva's main goal is to liberate, let me rephrase, the main goal of the Bodhisattva is to eliminate pain and suffering of all sentient beings. So when they see people engaging in the causes and conditions that will eventually give rise to pain and suffering, so instead of getting angry, they feel so sorry. Not sorry in a, what is that word now? In a condescending way, but feel really compassionate towards that person, because Bodhisattvas know how much suffering that would be for that person. And Bodhisattvas sometimes feel that we are the cause. If we weren't there, the person may not commit such heavy negative karma. So that's why, in a way, it is like, I am responsible for his negative actions. That's how Bodhisattvas think. Out of compassion, take all his misdeed upon yourself. So out of compassion, seeing that that person is engaging or committing negative actions, and as a result that person would undergo so much suffering. So Bodhisattvas, instead of getting angry at the person, Bodhisattvas takes upon the person's negative karma and whatever the ramification that brings. Can we do that? So this is actually about, in relation to forgiving. It's about forgiveness. We hold so much grudge and hatred to someone who has caused us harm. And in Chandrakirti's, the entering the middle way, it says that Noba chebe kelti terkuna telakwembe chisin dogam chis. Somehow we feel that retaliating will erase or relieve us of the pains that we endured. But Chandrakirti says that by getting angry and trying to get even with a person will not obliterate or will not eliminate the pain and suffering that one has already undergone. It won't make any difference to the past experience. So therefore, it is pointless. And from our own experience, we know that when we hold the grudge and the hatred, we are the ones who suffers. Sometimes the other person is oblivious to our hatred and anger, while the other person is sleeping so soundly. Here we are, losing our sleep over that person. So neither it helps us in this life nor in the future life. So why? I think it's one of the prayers. Tala dekzo tsangzhu simjin nam tongam tuyasan yila tenbeze kongzhu deshin lariyan tetaji yunden jujin suba kumbur shos. This is similar to what is called the four virtues. Not to retaliate when others show anger, criticize, scold us, or even beat us. So that's the practice of Bodhisattvas. That is how Bodhisattvas practice patience. So there is this story about forgiveness. There's this story of this someone called Richard Moore. His Holiness the Dalai Lama calls him my hero. I think he's from Scotland, or is it Scotland, or is it from Ireland? As a boy, an army, I think, shot him in his eyes with a rubber bullet and he went blind. But instead of getting angry and vengeful, he forgave this person and later became a good friend of this person. So if you YouTube Richard Moore, you will find the story. It's very interesting. So of course, when we talk about forgiveness, forgiveness is not about condoning the action. We are not saying that what the person did was right. So His Holiness says that healing doesn't mean the damage never existed. It means the damage no longer controls our lives. That's so true, isn't it? If you still harbor some grudge against that person, so for instance, if there is a gathering, let's say reunion, you want to go there so much, but after learning that that person is going to be there, that prevents you from enjoying that gathering. And then what not? The other person doesn't even know that. So forgiveness is very, very important. It is not easy to do, but I think it is very beneficial for us. I mentioned this before. For many of us, when we say we forgive that person or say I forgive you, it's like we are doing a huge favor to the other person. But in reality, actually you are doing yourself a favor. The moment you let go of that resentment, the moment you let go of that grudge, you are relieved of such a burden. I think we will feel as if, a heavy load is lifted off our shoulder. So we will be the one who will reap the benefits, not the other person. Our holding grudge against other person doesn't make much difference to the other person. So there is those of you who are fans of Lord of the Rings, there is a quote by Gandalf. I think this is a very good, very wise quote. It says, "Courage is not when to take life, but when to spare one." So much wisdom in there. It is easy to take another's life, but it is very difficult to spare someone's life, especially when that person happened to be what you consider as your enemy. So coming back to the point, the Bodhisattva Tokme Zangpo is saying that when seemingly unfair treatment befalls us, instead of getting angry, we should develop compassion towards that person and then generate this wish or aspiration to take upon oneself the causes or the negative karma that person is committing, and pray that we experience the result. So that's transforming suffering into the path. The next one, transforming blame into the path. This is also very common. So if we are unable to take the right steps when we are faced with these challenges, there is this danger of losing our bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is targeted or is focused on all sentient beings, includes everybody. But when we, segregate, when we create this category, that, oh, these are the people I will work for, I will wish goodness for them. But there are these certain group of people whom I wish harm instead. Then that's not great compassion. That's not bodhicitta. Even though we think that what we are practicing is a Mahayana practice, but as long as it is not motivated by great compassion or bodhicitta, the practice does not qualify as Mahayana practice. So here it says, Gashi tala minyen na zoba tongsun kyabar chobar chenayang chambe semji laryang tinyi ki yunden joba kese laglen yins. Even if someone broadcasts all kinds of unpleasant remarks about you throughout the 3,000 worlds, in return, with a loving mind, speak of his good qualities. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. So we know of people who like to talk behind our backs. Some people can be so busybody, and then they like to what is called bad mouth. And here when they say throughout the 3,000 worlds, so basically it means that broadcast that to the whole world. Let everybody know, whoever they meet, talk negatively about us. So what are we supposed to do when we encounter such people? This is the blame, transforming blame into the path. In return, with a loving mind, we have to remind ourselves the loving compassion. Loving compassion, is it? The love we have basically to remind ourselves the pledge that we took. We took the pledge to provide all the happiness and joy to all sentient beings. We vowed to prevent pain and suffering for all sentient beings, to bring them to the state of lasting happiness. So if we retort in the same way, then we are going against our vows. And also if our real goal is to make the other person happy or to provide them the happiness, then our action of engaging in criticism of the other person will not really render that kind of happiness to the other person. So we have to, when this happens, because we are accustomed to retorting, reacting in a negative way. So when we are in that kind of action, in that kind of habit, we have to remind ourselves that I shouldn't be doing that. I have taken the Bodhisattva vows. All these people who are making all this false, it could be false, it could be true, but intention is to really harm us, isn't it? So in such a, no matter whatever they do, just like me, just like us, they also want happiness. But what they are doing will not result in happiness. So that way, we will, instead of anger, we will be able to generate compassion and loving kindness to the other person. And it says, in return, with loving mind, speak of his good qualities. When somebody criticizes you or blames you for something, instead of reacting likewise, we should instead look for qualities. Everybody has qualities. It's a matter of whether we are serious about looking at the person's qualities. We are so habituated in looking or finding others' fault. That's why even though the person has so many qualities, we get blinded, we get sidetracked. Our focus is only on the faults. What are the shortcomings of that person? So he says that we should try to focus. We should try to direct our minds in searching the qualities. What does the other person, what qualities does the other person have? Definitely, if you really try to list down, there are so many things that the person is better. Let me rephrase. There are so many things that the other person is better than us. So this, you have to admire the qualities. So if we are able to focus on the qualities, then we will be able to kind of close our eyes to the other things that other person is engaging in. And also, blame and criticism, I think, is the next verse at the criticism. Remember in Shantideva's line. So whether other person's criticism, the other person's speech, hurt us or not, is completely dependent on us. Just the mere word has no power. The minute you acknowledge, the minute you, possess, or you take that word into consideration, it will harm you. It will hurt us. But if you just let it pass you, then it cannot hurt us. That's one way. Another way is, in the Shantideva says that, why are we so obsessed with the praise or criticism, because while someone may be criticizing us, there are other people who sees qualities in us and who are praising us. From our own experience, we know that we get so shocked that how come there are so many people have so much admiration to that person. To you is like 100% black, but then there are thousands and thousands of people who find the person admirable. So it says, when we hear this kind of criticism or blame, it says that we just take it as, okay, there are people who will criticize us, but there are also people who praise us. So there's no real reason, no point in feeling so down when we hear about criticism and feeling so elated when we hear praise about us. And even Buddha, who is faultless, Buddha also receives so much criticism and blame. And his cousin sees Buddha, the whole Buddha, everything Buddha does is wrong. He sees, flaws all the time. It doesn't mean that when others find fault in us or flaws in us, doesn't mean that we have that flaw. That's one way. And another way is, in a way, is good. If there are people listing our criticisms or listing our shortcomings, that is also okay. We just need to examine that, whether there is any truth. If there is some truth, okay, I accept that. Okay, this is good. So that, I can improve now. In order to make improvement, we first need to realize that we are short of that, isn't it? If we all the time feel that I am perfect in every way, then the progress is very hard to come by. That's why this conceit and arrogance is so bad for improvement. Because an arrogant person never admits all the time thinks that he or she is perfect in every way. Then there's no room for improvement. So when we are faced with this kind of situation, one way is take it as, okay, this helps me to improve myself. And you see here in the image, the archer with the target. So in Lojong practice, it says that when others criticize us or blame us, we should look at it as we are like the target. If there is no target, then the other person won't be able to shoot any arrows. So we created that target. So we are to blame. Because of the target, the person is shooting the arrow. And because of this, there's the danger of hitting other people. So because of us, they are committing negative actions, verbal as well as mental. So now transforming the criticism into the path. Domang dube usu gashi gi 창내 주신 signi manayang tela kewe shiji dushiji kubar duba kese lalins. Though someone may deride and speak bad words about you in a public gathering, looking on him as a spiritual teacher, bow to him with respect. That is the practice of Bodhisattva. It's not easy, isn't it? But there is so much wisdom in there. We are always looking for praise and admiration. But imagine if this happens. You are in a big crowd and somebody stands up and started accusing you of this and this. And then instead of responding in a negative way, if you are able to say thank you and bow at the person, people will be shocked. Not in a negative way. People cannot believe that this is happening because that's not our normal reaction. But because of that, you will gain so much admiration. We will get so much praise. And then there is also a chance that that person will also change. There are many cases, isn't it? Because when they say something else, because the other person is expecting something harsh to hear from you. And then the moment they hear that your reaction is not what they expected, they don't know how to react. And then that saves you all that trouble. No anger, no flush, the redness. We won't look so scary when we are in the moment of anger that really changes our face. So this is what Bodhisattvas do. And in the Lojong, in the text, it says that when people criticize us, we need to think this way, it says. Tala changla gwedweni tala kyun dedan di yobar wangi deyin debu korwa da ngensongi tunyi nyong kwebe na tade tunyi manyong kone kyun deda chube chedus. So here says, bow to him with respect. Treat the person as spiritual teacher. Because when the person points out our points, our faults, then we will be able to make changes. We can prevent that without the person pointing us all this of our shortfalls. We think that we are perfect, but we will be continuously committing negative actions, which will result in much more suffering. So because of the others pointing out our shortcomings, we make changes. And because of that, we will be able to prevent further damage, so to speak. And it can even prevent us from falling into the depths of lower realms. For instance, somebody says, oh, you gossip all the time, you speak badly about me and others. So sometimes, you will be kind of woken up. Oh, do I do that? And then you observe, and then you realize that, oh, that's true. And imagine if you are able to make changes to your speech, if you become more careful of your speech. That would have prevented so much negative speech. And eventually that would save us from the future sufferings. So because of that, we should view the other person as spiritual teacher. So here, when all this Lojong practice, when they say we have to view enemy as spiritual teacher, it is not baseless. There are bases to that. There are valid reasons to that. And Kadamba masters, to them, the other's criticism is like the core or the essence of the instructions. Kyunzang rangdo du pawa tamngagi choks. That means when others criticize and when you realize that you have that, if it is true, if you find that that is true, then it says that that is really like the core teaching, the essence of teachings. That is the precious teachings. And another reason why we should bow to the person who criticizes us is because that when we hear about our shortcomings, our faults, it helps us to kind of reduce our pride and arrogance and conceit. Without the other person criticizing you, as I mentioned earlier, we will think that, oh, we are perfect in every way. But when we hear about this, then we will become more humble. And with humility, we can progress so much. So the main practice is to view them as spiritual teachers and then reinforce our aspiration to help sentient beings. Include that person, specially dedicate our merits to that person, that may I be able to help this person, may I be able to alleviate the sufferings of that person. So that's the practice on the transforming the criticism into the path. I think we will stop here. So now we will recite the King of Prayers. So I will give you a few minutes to find your text. Okay, I will recite in Tibetan, and you can choose whether to do in English or in Tibetan. So let's begin. Baba jambe jono yoro bala ja zelo jini soda chojo jiden na tuzon jawa mi senje Dagi malu deda tamje la lu da nga yi tamye cha jiwo sangpo jebe me lam top tanje jawa tamje yi je ngo somdo shingen dwenye lu rab dubai jawa gun la rab do cha zevlom duje dena dwenye sanje namang sanje seje bir na shubha da teta juje ye na malu ba tamje jawa tanje kawam Teta ngaba mese gyazu nama yangi yangla gyazu dagwenje kyawa gwenje yunden rab chuchen tewar jeba tamje tagi tu medo tamba chewa tamba dan sinye namdan chukpa tu joda marmi joda dugu tamba ye gyawa deda lani choba je nasa tamba namdan ti joda chema puma de rab nyamba tang kube jebar pabe chogwenje kyawa deda lani choba je Choba gana lame jajewa deda jawa danje la yame sambo jola tebe topda je jawa gwela chaze choba je doja sheta timu wangi ne luda ngada dejen yege jang dewa dagi jeba jejeba deda tamje dagi soso ja chojo jawa gunda sanje se rangi namda lobda me lobda jowa gwenje sunam kanla yang teda gwenje jesu tanye rang Kana chujun jikden choma da chanchu rinpa sanje ma chanye gombo deda dagi tamche la kolo lana meba korwa nyanyen dadun kanshe deda la zhowa gun la penshing dewe shere keba shingen dunyi shubha yang dagi temo rabja sowa je chaze wada chujin sha wada Jesu yerang guishin sowa yin jawa chungse dagi chizaba tamchen zobe chanchu chingongo debe sanje namdan chojo yin jikden dana kanshu chojo je kaya ma jo deda ramnyurwa samzo chanchu rinpa sanje chun chojo kali shina chinye ba teta gyache yonso tajo je chanchu chingwan do shin gyawa dan sanje senje rabdo kanwa sho Choju simjen kana chinye ba deda dado neme tejo je zhowa gwenje shuje dunamne tumbara juje rewan dubara sho chanchu choba dani tajo je zhowa gwendo yewa tenjo je tserab gwendo chibo yewa dado dani rabdo chungwa sho kyawa gwengen jesu lomjurde sambo choba yonso zoje je Tsudim joba time yong damba dado manyan jome jobra sho laye jada luda lujenge chubon dada meye kyanamda chowa gwenje chanam chezamba tamje kedo tage chodondo Tishin paru jinla rabzunde chanchu semne namyan chemanju tekwa gana tebara jubanda teta malu yongso chanwa sho Leda nyomo tuje le namle chushin jiten jowa namso yang chedar bema chume chaba shin nyenda nanga toba medar je shinje jonda chona che zamba nyeson to nye rabdo shiwa che Dewa dala jowa gungu jen jowa danje lani pembara je chanchu joba yongson zoje jen simjen dagi chodan tumbara Sambo joba dani rabdun jen mawon jeba gundon chojo je tagi jodan sombara kan joba teta dani tado choba luda ngana dani simje jang joba tada melam chigdo je tala pembara dobe chobo kan sambo joba rabdo tun jeba Teta daya dado teba shuwa teta dagi naya yime yung sanje seje gobe gombo nama ngozon dado dagi jawad mawa jeba kundo me joba teta layan choba jaje jawa namje dambe shunzen chen shanchu choba kundo nawa je sambo choba nambar choba yanga mawa jeba kundo jeba je Sipa damche du yang korwa na sunam yishe dani me se nye tabda shera tenzen namdar tang yunden kunje me se zoyo je duje dena dunyi shing namde shingde samje meja sanje nam Sanje seje vyo na shubha la chanchu jeba choche tawa je teta malu tamche choso yang chazam jola duzon tsenye je sanje jazo shing na jazo ta jeba jazo choche rabdo Sonje yangla jazu dage je kyawa gwen yangla namda ba zhowa gwen je samba che shen yang sanje sungla dado zhuba je Tuzun jebe jawa damje da kolu zuna rabdo korwa ye teta je yang sun yang me se la lo ye dob je ta yang rabdo Mawa jeba tamje zhuba yang geje je je ta yang zhuba je kaya jeba tuzum tse te da geje chashe genen zhubar je Duzon jeba miye zenje gan teta geje je la tage da tado teta jenen chuyu la chumar jube namda dobje jo Kaya du sonda je shingwe ba, teta du je tendo ngomba jo, teta ma lu chona tam je do, kyawa da ge shingnam kwe la jo. Kaya ma jen je den jo ma nama teta rinpa sanja ko lo go, nyanyen deba rabdo she da dun, kumbo kunje chongdo ta jo, kundo nyuwen su ju tom nanda, kunne koye tebe tom nanda. Gundo yönden jöve domnanda, gundo kyawa jamba daje do, kune jeve sonam domnanda, chawa mebara jöve yeshe do, sherab dadan tinzi dobdaje, chanju domna yanda drupaje. Leje domna yonso daje je, nyomo domna gundo jombarje, tuje domna tome rabje je, sambo jöve domnen zoba, shina jazo nambara daje je, simje jazo dane namba je, chenam jazo rabdo tongje je, yeshe jazo rabdo dobaje. Joba jazo namba daje je, melam jazo rabdo zobaje, sanje jazo rabdo sheje je, kewa jazo mejo jeba, kaya duzon shebe jawa ye, shanju jebe melam cheda nama, sambo jebe shanju sanje ne, tegwe malu tage zobaje. Gyawa Gwenje Seje Do Wa Gange Mene Kundu Sanshin Shang Kewa Deda Sumbara Jebe Chere Gyawa Deda Tamche Rabdo Ngo Lu Da Nga Da Yija Namda Jin Shuba Namda Shina Yonda Ba Owa Sambo Kewa Chinda Wa Tera Tajan Deda Sumbash Gwene Gyawa Sambo Jebe Chere Jambe Gene Melan Jeba Ye Mawa Jeba Kundu Mejo Wa Teye Chawa Ma Lun Zoba Ye Joba dane tseyu manju ji yonde namja tsezu me bashu, joba tseme bala nene jang, teta joba danche tseba. Namge tatu joba chezamba, simje malu tayang te shende, chezang leda nyomo ta joba, tage melam tayang te zamo. Kaya chochu shena taye ba, rinchen jende kyawa namlambu, lada meye dewa cho namjang, shingen dunye keba piwa, kange ngwe jabo de dune chanju choje jesu rabyo shin lenje zanyang teba jeba ne sonam tambe chodon de yoro kange sanju melam de dambe dene nyason tamje bamba joro tene chobo nyamba bamba ye nawa taye tenyang te nyoro tong teda nyeba ramye dewa zo meze deyang teda lebang kondo zambo tenyang jedawa teda ringbo medo de shin yoro Samen abo dage degba na gange meje wange chaba da teye sambo choba dinjun na nyoto malu yonso changwa ishe dane sodan zen namda rida kato namda tenpa gyoro tuda modi mambu temedo chikden sombo kunan choba jo janju jenwa jondo tenyuru jo sonne simjen penje tedo de chanju sanje kolo rabdo go tunam tedan cheba tamje Kaya sambu jebe molam de changwa dani tuandam lona yang teye nambara mimba sanje jen chanju chola somnye ma je jik. Jambe bayu jedara jemba da kundu sambu tenyang de shende teta gunge jesu talom che gyawa deda tamje rabdong. Tuson jebe gyawa tamje je ngowa kanla chodo ngaba de tage jebe zawan de gwenjang sambu juje rabdong ngowa je. 다네 치베 도지 규르바나 제바 탐제 다네 시제데 오조 나와 타예 대동네 대화 진지 신데랍도로 데르존네네 멜람데 다자 탐제 말루 응원도 조와조 대다 말루 다게 용소강 제된 지세 심진 편바 계획 연구 상신가 와데 빼마 담바 신도 전례제 나와 타예 계획 무슨도 론데 바야 타게 대도쇼 Dene dage longden rabdone juba mambo chawa tajaye loye topje chocho namso yanga simje namla pemba mambo sambo jebe molam dabaye kyawa chungse dage chezaba tenen jove molam kyawa nama geje cheje tamjen jowa sho Zangpo jebe melam ngwebaye sonam damba daye gantobde jowa donye chugol chingba na hyoba mebe nerab toba sho melam jebo deda choje zo taye jowa kunla penjeje Gundo zangpo jebe shungchungde nye songju na malu tong wara shos. Okay, now let's recite Mani Padme Hum. Chadong Golu Jube Jebo Dong, Jendong Jeba Zambu Sanje Dong, Kanla Gandu Tela Tedunbe, Zumba Chere Sila Jaze Lo, Mani Padme Hum, 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 Omane bema, 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 omane bema. Omane bema, 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 omane bema. Omane bema, 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 omane bema. Omane bema, 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 omane bema. Omane bema, 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 omane bema. Omane bema, 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 omane bema. Omane beme homo yawandi nyodo da jere zewando jone drowa jijama leba chije sala kubara shos. So that concludes our prayers for Robert Clark. And I'm not sure whether everybody is aware. I know the Tibetans are aware of this month being Sagadawa. So those who are not aware, so the month of Sagadawa has already started. So as you know, those special days and special months, especially this month, is the month where Buddha achieved enlightenment, Buddha was born, Buddha also, the Parinirvana Day. So this is the meeting of three great events. So it is said that if we are able to do any virtue, we can get the benefit of doing that 100,000 times. So that's why it's called 100,000 multiplying month. So normally nobody likes an opportunist, but if we are able to be an opportunist when it comes to doing virtue, that's a good thing. We should grab any opportunity, especially working people who have no time for Dharma, whose priority is not Dharma, who cannot commit or devote much time to Dharma. So these are the times that we should really grab and be an opportunist. So I think today is already 9th, if I'm not mistaken, or 5th, only 5th. Oh yeah, I moved on, okay. 5th day. So we still have 25 more days. So it is important to really mindful of this month and utilize this time to do more Dharma practice. So of course, we all know that whether our practice becomes a Dharma practice or not is completely dependent on our motivation. So in order for any practice to qualify as Dharma practice, our intention must extend beyond this life. If we focus only on this life's welfare, happiness and well-being of this life, then it's according to Lamrim text. Technically, that's not a Dharma practice. So in order to qualify it as Dharma practice, our focus must include some concern beyond this life. So, of course, the best is to do any practice with the bodhicitta. If not, by this aspiration to achieve liberation, if not, at least to ensure good rebirth. So, with any of these motivations, if we do practice, then it becomes Dharma practice. But why not do with bodhicitta mind when it has so much greater benefit? So whatever you do, try to generate bodhicitta, and then do your practice. So it is important to set up your motivation the moment you wake up early in the morning. If you are able to do that, the whole day, there's this chance of that your whole day activity becoming a Dharma practice, even Mahayana practice. So let's grab this opportunity and try our best. So that's all for today. And then we have one final class. I think it's on the 30th, before we break for break. So let's dedicate our merits. Thagi jinye sabe gyawa de tendan jowa kunla kangben dan kebara chizun lozan tagwa yi tenbe nyingbo ringdo seje sho jambe bawe chedara kemba da Gundo Zangpo deyan dejin do deda kunye jesu talo je gyawa deda tamje rabdo ngo duzon shewe gyawa tamje ngo wa gala shodo ngaba de tagi gebe zawa degun jan sambo chuji rabdo ngo wara gis. Thank you.